Newborn. This is the motto of modern-day Kosovo, the second youngest nation on the planet. Kosovo's most recent conflict ended in 1999, and the struggle between the majority Albanians and the minority Serbs became known worldwide. This started the ever-present era of international involvement in Kosovo. Located in the heart of the Balkans, Kosovo is a disputed region. After declaring their own independence in 2008, Serbia refused to acknowledge them, and currently only 115 countries recognize them, but most notably, 23 of the 28 European Union members consider Kosovo a sovereign state. On the eve of Kosovo independence, all EU members signed off on the Eulex mission that was sent in to monitor and mentor the rule of law in Kosovo. This mission was implemented with the idea that it would build on the efforts of the EU and the international community that had been focused in the region since 1999. This documentary is concerned with the past, present, and future of EU involvement in Kosovo. When we asked Eulex what their mission was in Kosovo, this is what they had to say.
Our portfolio, our mandate is to strengthen, to assist Kosovo authorities to bring about an independent justice, rule of law here in Kosovo, free from political interference.
So, in a nutshell, our job is to try and stop it happening again by making sure that the rule of law structures are all credible, interwoven, and they actually work.
Petrit Selimi, the former deputy foreign minister, has been actively working in Kosovo's government since 2011. He has been able to witness the work of the EU and other international organizations in Kosovo since the beginning.
EU came first time in Kosovo in 1999 when the war ended. Kosovo became a part of the United Nations Protectorate. It was protected by UN. Serbian sovereign power was annulled, and UN set up institutions. In a way, they split the division of labor. NATO, K-Force, was meant to keep the security. UN was organizing the administration, while the EU was working on the economy of Kosovo and helping Kosovo become an post-war reconstructed society with open market economy. So we had now almost 20 years of experience of working very intimately in terms of EU being an essential component of our institutions, far more than anywhere else in Eastern Europe.
Other political parties, however, have a more critical opinion of the EU and the involvement of international organizations in the post-conflict development of Kosovo. We were fortunate enough to be able to sit down with Albin Kurti, who is the Prime Minister candidate for the Fethvendosia Party in the 2017 elections. This particular party, whose name translates to self-determination, has a history that has earned them the reputation for being a bit radical. Describing themselves as the only center-left party in Kosovo, they were able to win 27% of the total vote during the recent elections, making them the largest single standing party. But more relevantly, their opinion on the arrival of the international community differs from Selimi's.
So I think that, when international community arrives in Kosovo, they had these lenses, which were very ethnic lenses. There was war, and Albanians and Serbs were fighting. This was a very simplified narrative, which became premise for their policies. And I believe this was not right.
As you can see, there is considerable resentment amongst the Kosovo population regarding the heavy international presence. This resentment has definitely not been lost on the people of the international community working on the ground. While talking to an official from the United Nations Development Program, this became clear, but he made sure to place the blame on the newer EU mission instead of his own.
EU presence in Kosovo has been established just recently, a few years ago. EU was pushed to do development projects in this area in Kosovo, but do not have a lot of experience in that. In many cases, I've seen the throwing money through window around here because many of the projects and activities implemented by the really huge amounts of money are not visible or just disappeared after a short time. So the sustainability of the EU implemented projects and activities is really low. But again, I'm a bit biased since practically for almost 20 years I'm engaged in the UN, so maybe that's.
A very different message came from a professor at the University of Pristina in the capital of Kosovo. She has a positive view of the EU and the international community. This is also something she shares with many of her students.
No. We are, although somehow we think that it was not that help that we needed, without international community, Kosovo cannot develop. It was with the help of international community, because international community in any case imposed us lots of international values. And for us it was very important because we couldn't have this possibility to have these international values if we were only alone. But international community has helped a lot in this direction. We believe a lot in international community. All our people are pro European Union. All our young generations are pro European Union. And without the help of US and European Union, we couldn't manage.
The professor went on to share the view of Ms. Alexandra Papadopoulou, the current head of ULEX, who has expressed a need for change within the mandate based on the past EU experiences in Kosovo.
She has said that now we are trying to just change the mandate. It's not that we are leaving forever Kosovo and living alone. The issue is that they would like to be part again of the institutions, but in this case they would like to be with a different mandate. So they will have consultations, how to really proceed, how to do, and all this.
With the mandate changing every 2 years, the focus of ULEX is constantly adapting to the present situation in Kosovo.
So what's happening is we are changing from a crisis management mission and moving some of the stuff over to preparation for accession, because it's longest term stuff that needs to take place over a longer period to make sure that it's sustainable. Crisis management missions are always supposed to be finite. Again, I've got issues with doing it every 2 years because I don't think you can accomplish much in 2 years, but because we do this continual review, it just changes.
Even though some tasks are always changing, there are core aspects of the mission that remain a priority.
What cases have we done? We are not doing chicken theft, we are not doing robbery, we are not doing minor drug delicts. We are practically dealing with war crime, genocide, not very often indicted, but in principle, yes. Smuggling of migrants, trafficking, human trafficking is a broader term. Smuggling of weapons, smuggling of drugs, corruption, organized crime on all levels. So far we have produced about 500 to 600 judgments. I don't know if the number somehow is oppressive or not.
Although ULEX may not know if their work is successful enough, there are certainly people in Kosovo with an opinion on that. Some of these people live in Mitrovica, which is a city in the north of Kosovo that is ethnically split along the Ibar River. Serbians live in the north and Albanians in the south, only to be connected by a symbolic bridge. We were able to meet with Milos Golubovic, who is a project manager with an NGO called Community Building Mitrovica. This organization aims to facilitate dialogue and cooperation between the north and south side. Since Milos is well integrated in the Mitrovica community, he was able to share his opinion, and also that of others in the region, on the EU and what they've been able to accomplish.
I think they need to work still. What I think the people expected from them is to deal more with these war crimes and trials that happened like here in Kosovo. They didn't take so much efforts and put so much efforts in that. So now we are waiting for some special court again to be established. So maybe if they showed like more efforts in regard of war crimes and trials, that people will have see them as a more beneficial than they are at the moment.
This is not the only disconnect between the EU and the perceptions of some Kosovars. The opinion of the ULEX mission on the northern Serbian part of Mitrovica does not seem to match with the understanding of some of the people who live there.
There's some parts of the police where we are still trying to maintain public order here in Kosovo, basically in the north of Kosovo, where we have a majority Serbian population, where the Kosovo police, basically Albanian, does not have as much access to the territory, so to say, as they would like to have. Maybe Martin can tell you a little bit more about this. But for this, in case that there are inter-ethnic riots or riots in any form, we have whole 3 platoons. A platoon is 30 persons from Poland who are supposed to control the area, patrol, to secure bridges.
Milos believes this misunderstanding is rooted in gossip and false information.
Yes, but I think that the problem is that people, they don't understand how EU works and its system. That's why in most of the cases they said, yeah, but the EU is forcing us to recognize Kosovo. Actually, the EU didn't recognize Kosovo. Kosovo by the EU is still UN Security Council Resolution 1244. So I think that people don't realize the real mission of EU here and tend to judge based on some gossips, not on the true stories. I think this is more toward truth than what people think, because I also share your opinion, and I know that people are not in favor of EU, but it's not based on a common sense.
One of the most prevalent issues harming the state-building capacity of Kosovo today is corruption. The EU has stated that the fight against corruption must show significant signs of improvement before the country can become a member state. As we heard from ULEX officials, combating corruption is a main goal of theirs in aiding the rule of law in Kosovo. According to Martin Cunningham, the head of strengthening of ULEX, this will be difficult to achieve due to how widespread corruption actually is.
Moving on from that, we've got customs, borders, police, the Kosovo Prosecutorial Council, the Judicial Council, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Justice, and Corrections. And all of those have elements of political or criminal interference going into them. So it makes the capacity building of those structures somewhat complex.
We spoke to a student who studies at the University of Pristina, and she told us about her view on corruption in Kosovo, as well as the EU's membership conditions on corruption.
We should know something about corruption. It will never get rid completely. So this is the first thing that we should know. But actually, this has a connection also with our people of our country, because we are used to have only one political party being in the head of our government, and we will be like, oh, why we don't have this and why we don't have that, and we just go and vote the same person over and over. But the new thing that has come now, you're not informed about this or updated, so I will update you. For the first time, people of Kosovo, they voted for a change for the first time, because we are sick of the things that are being the same over and over again. So basically, what EU is asking is very good about corruption, because it actually is making us ask, what can we do as people of Kosovo to get rid of some levels of corruption. And we're like, oh, maybe I should go and protest. Maybe I should go and ask, why aren't you presenting me as I'm voting you? You know, like all those critical questions are like being on our head, and that is good because in the near future we can go and vote someone that is for that kind of position and can present us in a best way.
Also, with regards to corruption, Fedevendosha maintains their critical standpoint towards the EU's efforts.
Maybe they can help us, but they cannot replace us. And EULEX has been spending here billions of euros of European taxpayers' money with very modest success. They never catch big fishes or big sharks of corruption, only small ones. Søren Jessen Petersen was head of UNMIK in 2005 and 6. And he came recently, a couple of years ago, and he gave an interview, and he said to the moderator of TV show, whenever we try to arrest some big shark of corruption, you cannot imagine who called us one night in advance to block that and not allow us to arrest these criminals. And you were thinking, who called him? Pope? George Bush? Elvis? Who called him? He didn't say who called him, but you can imagine that some very big president of superpowers, in the name of stability, did not allow justice.
While we were meeting with EULEX, we brought up the criticisms about the mission's handling of corruption that we had heard from various parts of Kosovar society. The head of the press office chose to answer first, and her response was defensive, to say the least.
Part of our mandate, we never said that we're going to come and stem out organized crime and corruption for Kosovo. Our mandate is to assist Kosovo authorities in forming, implementing an independent rule of law.
Now, the head of Strengthening's message about dealing with corruption was different, and more in line with what was said earlier about it being a focus of theirs. Also, Mr. Cunningham mentions the successes they have had in this field.
Can you just finish up on the corruption? Is there corruption? Yes, without a doubt. Some of the indicators are, within Kosovo Corrections, for example, most of the senior management are acting. Whenever you have people within in acting roles, a significant proportion of which are the senior level, you have problems because you can actually interfere with their decision making because their job is not secure. So yes, it's here. Catching a big fish, as Katya said, very, very difficult to do. The first thing you do to catch a big fish is you start catching some of the little fish. And the small fish comment came from one person in EULEX that said, we're going to catch some big fish. It was a naive comment, possibly taken as a false expectation by the majority of the community here. And unfortunately, because of that, we've disappointed year in, year out. But actually, there's an incredible amount of work that has been done. And there are some significant players that are behind bars. There are war criminals that are behind bars.
Despite the checkered past that has caused some locals to have a negative view of the EU, some students have a more positive impression of the impact the EU has on Kosovo today.
Because every country in EU is in a good condition in economical aspect or in political aspect.
Yeah.
So there are much things to do, because we only have the agreement, like we have other steps that we should go to be a part of EU. But if we would be a part of EU, I would be very happy.
The positive opinion of Fatjona is not shared by this Serbian student from northern Kosovo. He is on the student council at the University of Pristina in northern Mitrovica and was willing to spend time with us to share his thoughts on this matter.
Mi, ako sam dobro razumio pitanje, mi želimo da uđemo u Evropsku uniju, ali moje lično razmišljanje jeste da ako Evropska unija ima imalo razumijevanje od nas, da nas ne tretira kao druge balkanske zemlje, da jednostavno nama pruži mogućnost da ne zahteva nešto od nas što se ne može ostvariti i da nam pruže onu dozu demokratičnosti koja daje i svima, da mi jednostavno možemo ući u tu Evropsku uniju. Ali ja mislim da narod ne želi da uđe u Evropsku uniju iz razloga zato što vidi što se dešava u Evropsku uniji. Evropska unija je zemlja, to je savez, zajednica koja je trenutno bliže raspadu nego nekom cvetanju.
According to Dejan Antic of the UNDP, the criticism of Dragona Tmuzic and other Serbians in northern Kosovo is rooted in the fact that the EU mission was imposed on them.
The resistance of the population toward the EU was much higher, just from the reason I told before. EU is something that just came without proper legislative, while UN is present here based on the agreements, pre-agreements and agreements. And then EU is perceived as someone that clearly supports independence of Kosovo, while the UN is in the status of neutral. So from that perspective also, UN is more welcome than the EU among the Serbs.
Parallel to the rule of law functions of the EULEX mission that have split the opinion of the population, the EU is laying the foundation for Kosovo to operate independently and eventually become a member state.
The challenge you've got in Kosovo is Kosovo wants to become part of the European Union. Normally in peaceful times, I would class the peace here as a negative peace. We're not in a stage of positive peace at the moment. That's clear. So while some of the narrative you'll hear is that there's no longer a crisis mission, no, maybe not. But we're still in the process of state building, and we're still in the process of being in a place that's in negative peace.
Within this process of state building, the EU is collaborating with many local organizations such as the Kosovo Women's Network. Igo Rogova is the executive director of the network, and when we talked to her, she described the help that the EU is providing in order to prepare Kosovo for EU membership.
So we are working together with EU now that one day when we come to EU as a member, we don't have the same problems. I'll give you one example. We heard about Poland, what happened in Poland after they joined EU. It was the ban against abortion. Imagine, we don't want that. We want now to build together all the mechanisms, then one day when we are a member, nobody can shake those mechanisms. And in this process, we are together working with EU and with the government. Well, we have many good laws in Kosovo, but we lack implementation. So we always ask EU to push for implementation.
Regardless of who you talk to, the conversation about the EU and state building in Kosovo will naturally turn towards the future. Petrit Selimi is no exception.
I think Kosovo is getting ready, is already in the process of obtaining a lot of former functions that EULEX had. In a way, EULEX transitioned itself every 2 years, giving more and more ability of Kosovars to govern and to educate on their own. Kosovo's rule of law system is in a better position now than it was 5 years or 10 years ago. Indeed, next phase of transition, which I don't think will be final. I think EULEX will probably decrease in size, but will still have some presence, either in terms of monitoring or mentoring, and will be able to continue to aid Kosovo's institutions, prosecutors, judges, police, in achieving the highest standards expected from, let's be honest, a country that wants to be a member of the EU. Yeah.
Miloš has an eye on the future when it comes to the role of the EU, especially in Mitrovica.
I think that until now it was helpful, because in many cases we had some incidents that were stopped, and that in 2011 we had barricades on the same bridge, and EU is the main mediator for opening of the bridge, which will bring communities together. Not together, but it will open maybe paths for them to go from the north to south and vice versa in more capacities than now, because people are crossing the bridge, but not so much.
Across the Ibar in the north of Mitrovica, Dragona Tmusic is not looking forward to the future with the EU. The history of international intervention, especially the NATO bombings of Belgrade, still plays a huge role for him.
Vi ste rekli da oko 60% ljudi ne želi Evropsku uniju, ja mislim da je to stvarno stanje našeg duha, da jednostavno ne želimo ući u brod koji tone, kako kažu drugi mnogi evropski naučnici, analitičari, intelektualci, znači to ne kažu o Srbiji, ali smatram da naša država mora ući u Evropsku uniju zato što se mi nalazimo trenutno u nečemu što se zove poluokruženje NATO zemalja, poluokruženje zemalja Evropskih unija, gdje jednostavno ako mi ne možemo da izdržimo neutralni, ali ako izdržimo neutralni, to bi bio stvarno veliki uspeh za našu zemlju. Pa, ovo je opet moje lično mišljenje da jednostavno, da se ja nalazim na mjestu premijera ili predsjednika Srbije, ja bih rekao, ok, ući ću u Evropsku uniju, ući ću u NATO, ako nam isplatite sve ono što ste uništili tokom NATO bombardovanja, zato što je to bio po međunarodnom pravu ilegalni akt. Znači, nije bio pravno poštovan akt i smatram da kada se ne poštuje pravo da se moraju snositi konsekvence.
Back in Pristina, Fatjona shared her grievances with us and explained how they motivate her to support the EU and the future membership of Kosovo.
And we have a very long road to do to get to being a part of EU. So, as I said, economy is something that we want because if you don't know, in Kosovo there are so many good products that we can sell abroad, and that is the good thing about the EU because we can. There are good benefits if we sell it throughout the world. I don't know correctly, but still that is a good positive side. So that would be a good side for us because the economy will be increasing. We wouldn't buy Serbian products all the time, for example, because I hate those and I'm not using those products a long time ago. Because if you don't know, my father, my uncle, and other 11 members of my family, they were killed by Serbians, and also many of Kosovars were killed from Serbians. So I don't want Serbian products here. I want Kosovo products to be all around the world.
The differences between these two sides on the future outlook of the EU are clear to see, but it's interesting to hear them both base their perceptions on the grievances that they share within their own communities. Now, it's important to note that not all Kosovars base their views on the future with one foot still in the past. Miloš is one of them, and he speaks for many when he talks about the benefits that the EU would bring if Kosovo were to become a member.
Okay, I would like to see this bridge finally open maybe, because last, I don't know how many years it is closed, in a process of renovation and different things. I would like to see these people employed, because with the employment, I think that everything stops here and there will be time for new relations. Because people in the past, where they lived together, they were employed, they didn't have problems. Now, when they are not employed, I hope at least that this unemployment rate will be reduced so much.
Okay.
Because at the moment it's around 60%, so let's target for 30 or 20, but I don't know how much our public institutions are dealing with that, as it's very hard to get somebody from abroad to invest here. You don't have legal system, your assets are not protected.
Okay. Surprisingly, the typically critical Fedevendosja caught us off guard when they said that if they were in power, they would push for Kosovo to join the EU as soon as possible, albeit on their own terms.
Order. We would like Kosovo to join EU as soon as possible. However, we would like to see all the 6 countries of Western Balkans to join EU at the same time. We think that Greece is doing nothing to Macedonia what Serbia will do to us if they join EU one day before us. There would be a lot of conditioning, which would ruin any possibility for inclusion into EU of Kosovo.
Everything we have heard up until this point has confirmed the usual narrative that we hear about Kosovo, depicting it in a position of a victim and need of help from the international community. But once Kosovo becomes a full-fledged member of the European Union, they will have the same opportunities as other member states, and will be in a position to contribute within Europe. This is why we wanted to learn about what Kosovo could bring to the EU and how they could be an actively involved member of the Union.
The special thing about EU is that every country has its own history, its own culture.
Okay.
So basically, if Kosovo would be there, she would be giving a lot of the culture that we have here.
Yeah.
We also in an educational aspect, we have like our universities are very bad looking, but inside we have many intelligent students that would actually give a very huge effort into the EU, because if we have students going worldwide in the world, studying and stuff, then they will be potential people contributing in the EU.
Yeah.
And then we also have very good places, like people can come in Kosovo and be tourists and maybe live here because we have conditions that we can give to them.
As a political party, Fetevendosje takes a more economical and geopolitical perspective on the benefits of Kosovo within the EU and on a larger global scale.
So, but again, people, immigrants, these refugees, their dreamland is Europe. And I think for Kosovar people is likewise. But what we can offer is we have good agricultural land. We have we are rich in minerals. And I think we are a very important route toward Middle East. Balkans is very important. And this One Belt, One Road, this idea of New Silk Road, I think it will pass through two very problematic zones, Kurdistan and Balkans. So I think we better have peace here for world peace. I think Balkans and Middle East are very important. And inclusion into EU would mean also a step toward peace.
Despite the political differences between Fetevendosje and Patriots Party, they do both share the sentiment that joining the EU would bring peace and stability to the Balkan region.
Kosovo is part of Western Balkans, which have assured place in EU if we commit and finish and fulfill our reform process. This being said, Western Balkans is a very diverse region with religions, ethnicities overlapping each other. It's really quintessential Europe. It has types of richness, of texture, that I think is a critical component of that European identity.
From his local perspective, Miloš is more encouraging of the cultural aspects of Kosovar society that would further enrich the European Union.
Nice food,
Okay.
nice wine. Kosovo is very rich with different kinds of minerals that were not exploited in the past, which can be like, I don't know, source of some of the minerals, definitely. There is interesting tradition, and there is many of UNESCO buildings that are actually in Kosovo, which will bring cultural heritage, to say, to the I hope for a brightening future. I think that in a couple of years, new people will come, maybe new spirit, and we will have like this not forgotten, but get over toward better future.
Kosovo today is a very different picture than it was when the EU first arrived. Ulex has clearly been able to make steps in improving the rule of law in the region and helping develop Kosovar institutions. Corruption, however, is still an issue that looms large, and it is a concern for many Kosovars as they look to the EU to help solve this. It is unclear, though, whether the EU sees this as one of their main priorities, and this has created a disconnect between them and the population. Despite this, many people living in Kosovo still see its future including EU membership, with the hope that it brings jobs, visa liberalization, and opportunities for all. A connecting factor between everyone is their optimism for the future and the hope that this young population can propel Kosovo to the main stage of Europe and maybe even the world.